Dividing decimals. On the board we have two examples. Our first example is 6 divided by 1.5. The first step when dividing a whole number by a decimal is to look at the number on the outside, 1.5. The first step is to move the decimal point in that number to the far right end of the number. Let's count to see how many decimal places over it would take for the decimal point to be moved to the right end of this number. 1. And now the decimal point goes here. I'm going to mark it in red so that it will stand out a little bit more. Again, it took one decimal place to move the decimal point over to the right end of the number. And now that the decimal point is in front of this number, instead of 1.5, we have 15. When a decimal point is moved in front of a number, that number becomes a whole number. Let's move on to step number 2. The next step is to go back to the whole number on the inside, the number 6. Whatever we did on the outside, we must do on the inside as well. Because we moved the decimal point one place over to the right on the outside, we must now move the decimal point one place over to the number on the inside as well. When you look at the number 6, you may say, well, I don't see a decimal point that can be moved. But there is always an invisible decimal point in front of a whole number. Let's move the decimal point one place over to the right. 1. And the decimal point goes here. Now that we've moved the decimal point one place over to the right, we must fill in that space with a 0. We must add a 0. Therefore, 6 becomes 60. The third step and final step is to divide. We are now dividing 60 by 15. 60 divided by 15 is 4. And 4 is our final answer. 15 goes into 60 4 times. Our next example is 72 divided by 0.3. Take a look at the number on the outside, 0.3. The first step is to move the decimal point in that number to the far right end of that number. Let's count how many places it will take to move the decimal point to the right end of this number. 1. And now it took one decimal place over to move the decimal point to the right end of the number, and now the decimal point goes here. The next step is to go back to the number on the inside, the number 72, and move the decimal point one step over to the right as well, because what you do on the outside, you must also do on the inside. If you look at the number 72 and you say, well, I do not see a decimal point, remember, there is always an invisible decimal point to the far right end of every whole number. Now we're ready to move the decimal point one place over to the right. 1. The decimal point now goes here, and we must fill in that space with a 0. And that completes step 2. The number on the inside is now 720. On the outside, instead of 0.3, the number is now 3. And now we're ready to divide. 720 divided by 3. 720 divided by 3 is 240. 3 goes into 720 240 times. And 240 is our final answer. And that was our last example. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more helpful math tutorials. Thank you guys.